Thank you so much for tuning in another one of my interviews. Here with me now is Mathew Hurtt of the Leadership Institute. Mathew, thank you so much for coming on with me tonight. I really appreciate it.
William, it's great to be with you. Happy to be here.
Well, it was not only great to meet you at CPAC, but I've got a chance to look up some of your stuff here, that you all do, and I was really impressed, which is one of the reasons why I reached out to you to do an interview with you, because I think your organization is something that more people need to learn about, because it's not just an organization with well, I'll let you tell about it in a second, but I think it's something that more people need to have on the radar. More candidates, because don't y'all do a lot of training for candidates too, right?
William, the Leadership Institute, it was founded in 1979 by Morton Blackwell, who is a Louisiana native.
Yeah.
And we train thousands of candidates, of conservative activists, and of young people, people at LSU and on college campuses across Louisiana, across the country, on how to be more effective in their activism. So if they're looking to run for office, we train prospective candidates. If they want to manage campaigns, we train campaign managers. And if they want to start a conservative group on their campus, we train those activists as well.
I love it. And so I'm going to say something I say regularly on my show, is that conservatism actually knows no party. And more people can unite on conservative values than they realize. And the only thing that I'm not real happy with, that the Republican Party uses the word conservatism so much that conservatism gets a bad name. And I don't think that a lot of people realize how, I have Democrat friends who are more conservative than some of my Republican friends. So when we talk about conservatism, or your organization teaches, more about conservatism and teaches the values, do you have any candidates that might be other than Republicans?
That's a great question. I've been affiliated with the Leadership Institute since 2009.
Mhm.
And in one of my early trainings was a future candidate school here in Arlington, Virginia, where our headquarters is. And I taught a young Democrat who was running for city council in Washington, D.C. I went on to volunteer for him. He was more conservative, in fact, than the Republican candidate in that
Right.
race. So the Leadership
Right.
Institute is nonpartisan. Anybody can come to our programs. There are plenty of conservative rural Democrats in Louisiana. There are plenty of moderate, squishy Republicans in Louisiana, and we focus.
I don't know who you'd be talking about.
Well, we focus on teaching. Those people. We hope that people come to our training with conservative principles and the values, and then we teach them to go out and be effective.
Oh, love it. So who Morton Blackwell started it? How long ago did he start the organization?
So Morton Blackwell, actually, he grew up in Louisiana. He went to LSU. He started college Republican chapters across Louisiana in the early 1960s. Was so effective at that he was elected, the youngest elected Goldwater delegate for then Senator Barry Goldwater in 1964. Went on to serve as executive director of the College Republican National Committee for a number of years, where he learned and perfected training young conservatives on how to work on campaigns.
Right.
So he actually, cut his teeth in the Dave Treen race for Congress in the 1960s there in Louisiana, and went on to work for a number of conservatives across the country. And then in 1979, he founded the Leadership Institute. And since then, we've trained 244,446 conservative activists across the country and across the globe.
That's amazing. So do you all have specific classes, I guess? Like how many classes do you have? I know you said how many people you've taught. How many classes do you all have?
The Leadership Institute has 51 types of training, from the campaign management school and future candidate schools, which are 4 days long, that we host at our headquarters in Arlington, Virginia, to grassroots workshops, which we can take across the country in person there in communities across Louisiana, from Orleans Parish up to Shreveport. We can come down and organize conservative.
Orleans Parish.
Look, hey, there are
Yeah.
conservatives in Orleans Parish,
Yeah.
and if they could get organized, even if they're operating in the Democratic Party there, they could make an impact. There was
like you said, I met a lot of Democrats that have very conservative values here in Louisiana, and sometimes they vote with the Republicans on a conservative issue. Sometimes, they'll leave. They'll vote. If there's a Democrat issue that's conservative enough, they'll vote there. So I've seen the party lines being crossed.
Well, the pro-life and pro-gun community in Louisiana specifically, I love, when I'm down there, I love the "I am pro-life" bumper sticker, because you
Right.
see that on Democrat cars and Republican cars. And
Did you know that? And I'm sorry to interrupt you again, but did you know that in the Louisiana Constitution, it's in the state statutes that life begins at conception?
that is, that's excellent news. And I think, again, that's one of the issues that cuts across the partisan boundary, especially, I grew up outside Nashville, Tennessee, in the South. And that's especially an issue across the South that cuts across the partisan boundaries, and it allows us to come together and talk with one another and find commonality and advance those principles, whether it's in the state capitol in Baton Rouge or Nashville, or up in Congress here in Washington.
Well, that's some interesting stuff there. So so y'all have Second Amendment courses also?
So we are expressly a do tank. We teach people to organize around the principles that we hope they already believe. So
Okay.
if you come to us and you are a Second Amendment enthusiast, if you're a pro-life activist, if you're a campus conservative,
Right.
you take the value set that you have already, and we teach you how to go out and be an effective activist. So we don't do philosophy. There are many great organizations. You and I were just talking offline about the Pelican Institute down in Louisiana. There
Right.
are conservative organizations across the country and operating in states like Louisiana. And we hope that those organizations generate good conservative public policy. And then we teach activists how to go out and affect change and advance that policy.
That's pretty interesting. So are there any examples in these courses that you can give that kind of give people an idea of how y'all do this?
We just had a training actually in New Orleans in December. We had a 2-day intense youth leadership school. We had young students, college students from across Louisiana and across the country come down and learn how to organize nuts and bolts, starting a campus organization, learning how to jump through the hoops of campus administration, all the way to learning how to work on a campaign for Congress or for U.S. Senate. You guys, it's exciting politics in Louisiana. Every election cycle, there's
Yeah, we had
something
the
new,
jungle
something exciting.
primary.
And we teach young people in that school that we had in December. We taught 45 young people how to organize around those principles on college campuses and on campaigns. In addition, I was looking at the programming that we've had in Louisiana before. We've had grassroots workshops. So if you organize through a party committee, or you organize for a candidate or a campaign of your choice, we can come out and teach you how to knock on doors, teach you how to message to your friends, teach you even how to communicate with your neighbor who doesn't always agree with you.
Right.
And so that's part of the 51 kinds of trainings that we can do in person. But we also have training online at leadershipinstitute.training. So, we know that folks are busy. If you're looking to run for office, you may not have time to fly up to Washington, D.C., and you can take those trainings, those courses at your leisure at home online.
Are y'all located in D.C.?
We are in Arlington, Virginia, where our headquarters has been for about the last 25 years. And we just had a school of future candidates here in-house, folks who flew from all over the country and even Canada came down to take part in that 4-day training. But we do love going out into the States. I just got back from Salt Lake City yesterday, where I trained a bunch of conservative candidates who are considering running for office this year.
It sounds to me like while you may have a long list of training courses, do y'all do any custom tailoring? Like if somebody says, "Hey, I need something specific," can you custom tailor something for them?
We can 100% custom tailor. In fact, there's a really great organization called Teen Pact. These are young homeschool students. There's some on the North Shore and some in my home state of Tennessee. And once or twice a year, we come together with those young people, and we have special curriculum just for high school and teenage activists that allow them to go out and talk about their principles and values. And so, yeah, we can customize the training for the audience. And we understand that we drop into a community. We have to know the politics of the community, right? So I'm not going to
Right.
come down. I'm not going to come down to New Orleans and say Orleans County when I'm talking about the local
Right.
government,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
So
Well, it
we
sounds like
do.
you know a lot about Louisiana politics. You've already a lot of the examples that you've given sounds like you already know a lot about us down here. So I don't think you say Orleans County. You would say Orleans what?
Parish.
No,
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to trap you. I was trying to be funny. But so now, are there any big campaigns that you have worked on that you can use as examples of things?
So the big important legal line is that the Leadership Institute doesn't endorse candidates or political parties or legislation, and that's important to our tax status. However, we do follow where our activists go after they get trained. For instance, in the gubernatorial election in Virginia last year, the conservative Republican won. He won on the issues of schools. He won on the issues of opening the economy. He won on the issues of eliminating mask and vaccine mandates. And we had on his campaign 8 full-time youth coordinators who were trained by the Leadership Institute, who organized on college campuses, and that we saw a 20-plus point swing in the 18 to 24 vote from the 2020 election to 2021 in favor of the conservative Republican. On the lieutenant governor's race, Winsome Sears, she'd taken Leadership Institute training. She is a hardcore Second Amendment enthusiast, a woman of faith, and an immigrant from Jamaica. She had taken a number of Leadership Institute courses, and now her chief of staff in Richmond is a Leadership Institute trained activist. We saw 2 members of the House of Delegates here in Virginia who took Leadership Institute training, ran and won their races, and now we have a conservative majority in the House of Delegates. And so we follow our activists after they've taken training, and we pay attention to what they're doing. And we saw tremendous success just in the last year in Virginia with people who've taken LI training.
So, just out of curiosity, I mean, you guys can't work for free. So, is there pay involved? I mean, do the candidates have to pay for this? Is it a donation? Or are you all funded in other ways?
So the Leadership Institute is a nonpartisan nonprofit. We operate a budget based on the generosity of our donors. Only 2% of our annual revenue comes from programming. So, William, if you asked me to come out there and do a training, I would ask for you to organize 40 of your friends, and you guys might pay $15 or $25 a person for the program. And that would probably, cover the cost of us getting out there. But we have over 80,000 generous supporters across the country who would not, none of this would be possible without the generous support of our
Right.
donors. And so we're grateful for that, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to organize on behalf of my principles, my values, because of the support of those donors.
So I like to find things that unite more people. That's kind of my I hate to say this, but my shtick on my show. I'm obviously conservative value minded. I obviously, I'm on the right. I'm unabashedly pro Second Amendment. I mean, I just tell people, that's not even, there's no, room to argue there at all with on gun rights. And I can go on for days. And it's what's interesting though is, as we said earlier, a lot of these things that I say that I am for. There's a lot of people that are on the Democrats that are for that too. I've got pro Second Amendment Democrats. I've got pro freedom Democrats. People just don't realize how much of that party of those how these values don't have a party line or don't adhere to a party line. So in promoting that, in saying it that way, are there things I'm trying to show people that you have an organization that being nonpartisan might be something that they can go to find more information on, to support on. And again, yeah, I'm trying to promote your organization, but I also, one of the things before I ask or let you answer the question is, I look for things that unite us. So
Mhm.
I look for organizations that not only unite us and unite values, but find ways for people to get involved. Because one of the biggest problems that I think our country faces is that we don't have enough involvement. I mean, people are too busy. They've got their kids and they've got baseball, they've got cheerleading, and they've got dinner to make, and they've got whatever it is that keeps them too busy to be involved. But I always tell people, look, you got to find, even if it's the smallest way to be involved, even if it's just voting. One of the things that I tell people is, and my friends hate hearing me repeat that. My friends don't hate me hearing me repeat this, but I have a few friends that, every so often say, you said that again, which is, if you don't vote, somebody's going to steal your vote. And our last election was stolen because not enough people who are registered to vote use their vote, which is how the ballot harvesting, gets done to be able to produce votes to win elections. So that's just a small example that I tell people, that if you don't get involved, somebody, or in the case, if you don't vote, somebody's going to steal your identity, so to speak. And if you don't get involved in politics, you might say, I don't like politics, I don't want to get involved in politics. But if you don't get involved in your community in some way, shape, or form, people or organizations with nefarious purposes are going to be able to take over. So my long answer here, my long question is, does the Leadership Institute have more ways to bring more people together on all sides? Or are there things that people can turn to the Leadership Institute to find ways to get involved?
You make some really good points there. And I was, just thinking of four things that come just off the top of my head of uniting issues that we've seen in the last few years. For instance, you mentioned the Second Amendment. The largest demographic of new gun owners in the last 2-3 years are African American women, Black women. And so that is an issue that cuts across traditional party lines and identification. We've seen federal employees, longtime Democrats and federal employees oppose vaccine mandates. That's a unifying issue. The third issue I think about is our school boards. People are fired up about school boards, about the issues that are going on in our schools. The flashpoint was Loudoun County, Virginia last year, and that cut across party lines. And so we see all of these opportunities to unite Americans around common sense, conservative principles, and the Leadership Institute is there to take that energy and channel it into productive activity. And like I mentioned earlier, there's a great training about how to talk politics with your neighbor without getting into a fight. That's something
Wow.
that I care about as well. It is possible,
Yeah.
and it happens in person. William, you likely know the people who live next door to you, or at least a few people in your neighborhood, and we have to talk to our neighbors, talk to the people who maybe think or feel differently on these issues than us, because there are commonalities.
Right.
When the day Donald Trump went to the White House to meet Barack Obama 2 days after the election in 2016, I was at the White House. I was outside. I love a good protest, love a good rally.
Yeah.
And I was outside, and I did exactly what you're talking about. I forced the conversations. I listened to people, and I said, where can we find common ground? And I met a young African American woman who supported school choice and educational opportunity. I met another young man who had been through the criminal justice system, and he and I agreed on some issues. And so there are issues, there are themes
Right.
that unite Americans, and we want to be there to talk about those solutions and to encourage people to go out and make that change in their community at the most local level, which is, I'm sitting here in Arlington, Virginia, and I'm a member of my neighborhood association. And so I want to get out and know my neighbors and know about the local issues, because that's where we can really come together and humanize one another and find common ground, and then advance what I think are common sense solutions.
Love it. I'm really enjoying this conversation because, again, I love my organizations that are out there working hard, where people can get involved in, and work with and be able to help affect change. And it sounds like that's one of the things that you guys do is help organizations, or help people, help candidates really truly affect change. You mentioned school boards. I want to talk to you about school boards because it's something that I know that you're really passionate about. From our previous conversations, which it's one of the things that I think is also very, very important, is kind of a lazy way of saying, the importance of the school board elections, if you will, because I don't think that the people realize how much power the school boards have. the Democrats or people with nefarious purposes, not the Democrats that are nefarious, but there are people within the Democrat Party. I mean, look, there's people on the far right that have nefarious purposes also that use our school systems as a way to uh, to win the long game, if you will. And I really and that's what people don't realize is that they don't see the things that are happening in our communities because they don't see the long game. They say, "Oh yeah, that's that CRT or this or that. That doesn't affect us today." Well, the people who have nefarious purposes are seeing the long game, and what people like this institute is seeing, and what I've heard from other people is that our school boards, when we get parents who want to be involved or people who want to be involved in grassroots changes in our communities, the school board is one of the best places to start, which not only solves a lot of immediate issues, but stops the long game.
One of the most unifying issues we saw in Virginia was the issue of school boards last year.
Right.
And imagine this, William, and for your listeners and viewers, this is really going to resonate, I think. Take the average parent of children in the public schools. 3% of those parents are probably very involved because their children are behavioral problems. 3% of those parents are probably involved because their children are intellectually gifted and they have an IEP.
Right.
And so there are 94% of parents who, before the pandemic, thought their children were learning everything they needed to learn to
Everything
be
they needed to know.
outstanding citizens. And now they've learned in the last 2 years that's not the case. And they got involved. They showed up at school board meetings. They showed up at the schools. They're organizing in communities. And I saw in Arlington, Virginia, a county that voted 80% for Joe Biden. I saw Democratic women who were upset with the schools issue, and they voted for the Republican candidate for governor last year. This is a unifying issue. It cuts across
Right.
partisan boundaries, and it is bringing parents to the table where they otherwise had checked out or weren't paying as much attention. And parents are fired up, and they're showing up at school board meetings, and many of them are even running for school board themselves. And that's why last year the Leadership Institute launched our school board training, both online, which is sort of facilitated by Senator Ted Cruz online. He kicks off the school board training,
Right.
and then in person. We've done these programs across the country. We've trained over 1,000 activists at these school board trainings. We had a huge one in Florida a few weeks ago. About 150 people showed up because people are concerned about what's going on in our schools, and they want to know how to make an impact. So we're working in the communities at the very local level to educate people on how to interact and how to run for school board if they want to.
I'm going to comment on that in 2 seconds, but I just did an interview right before you is with a gentleman who's running for Congress there in Virginia, Leon Benjamin. And I've interviewed someone last week who's running for Congress there in Virginia. So I know that's a hot topic in Virginia, because of Youngkin. Youngkin basically won, I think, basically by, running on giving parents back their rights and being more involved in schools. But, we can take the hot topics, that in schools right now, like CRT, and my previous interview, we talked about that with CRT and how that kind of destroys minds, if you will, and it kind of puts people in. Trying to think how the best way to say this. It creates arguments between not only races but humans, and makes people feel inferior not only to each other but to themselves. We can dissect CRT all day long and whether it should be taught in schools or not. But when we talk about school boards and school board races, I think people don't realize that it's not just CRT, the stopping of CRT, that it's a lot of things. I'll give you a couple of things from me. I've noticed that that we see that now, of course, I'm talking about more high school, ages, but they've taken PE out of schools. I mean, a lot of schools don't have PE. They replaced PE with art. Not that art's a bad thing, but they focus more on art than they do physical education. In high school, they've taken out a lot of things like home ec, or they've taken out shop classes. And while this might not be issues for a lot of people, a lot of parents, when they realize that what they're not teaching in school, which are basic skills. I'll use the shop example. They don't teach shop in schools as much anymore. Some do, but if you're a parent who believes that not all children are made to go to college to become a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, and that some kids do better and even make more money and have better lives if they can learn a trade, by, with electrician or plumbing or whatever, then they realize that things like shop back in schools can make a difference for some people. ADHD, for instance, it's been proven that children with ADHD do better environments where they have physical education, in schools. So if a parent believes in these issues, also the school board is a great place to start. What other issues do you teach that help parents in these environments?
That's a great, those are great concerns, because what I found is that the solutions to a lot of those problems happen at the most local level. It's when parents who do have a say in their children's education show up and make a statement. You're absolutely right. There is an entire field, many fields of what we used to call blue collar employment and opportunities that we have taken hundreds of thousands of young people out of the market. A former colleague of mine, his 18-year-old son went to welding school, and boom, within a week had a job offer making $45,000-$50,000 a year,
Right.
because he learned a skill or a trade. That is such a valuable thing. And if you think about America First as a policy, and bringing back manufacturing and those kinds of opportunities, you have to invest in those skills and trades. But it happens when parents show up. And so, the Leadership Institute offers training that teaches people how to, in their communities. We could educate a group of 50 parents and then encourage them to go to Baton Rouge and testify before committee to talk about the importance of skills and trade education in high schools. Also encourage people to go out and take an all of the above approach to education. It's not just the public school. Public school is strong in many communities, but it fails in many other communities. And a lot of our friends in urban areas have been left behind by failing public schools, and in rural areas. And so shouldn't parents have a say over where their children go to school, be it, their importance of Catholic and parochial schools on the I-10 corridor down there,
Right.
or homeschooling. I know
Right.
there's a huge teen pact and homeschooling community in Louisiana, and it's across the country. And parents should have access to as many opportunities to educate their children as possible, from a strong public school to a great homeschool community to parochial and private and charter schools and vouchers. Really should be all the above. And at the Leadership Institute, we teach people how to organize around those principles and policies they care about, and then to go make change based on what it is they see in their community, because we understand it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. This is why Washington is broken, and this is why we're suffering under the Biden policies and the Biden economy, is because the federal government does not have the solution to every problem in every community. And we have to empower parents, local legislators, local leaders to go out and make the change that benefits them and their communities.
And you all can teach and train individuals who want to be more involved in that process, because look, these types of principles are some of the principles that can help stop some of the wastefulness or the dysfunction or the lack of organization that we see going on in places like DC. I would like for you all to have a class that teaches our Congress that $30 trillion in debt's a bad thing, and there's other ways, because that's on the backs of your great grandchildren.
Well, and we see inflationary monetary policy where it doesn't even make sense to put money in a savings account anymore, because just over the last few years, your dollar is worth 90 or 80% of what it was just a few years ago. And so there's terrible public policy coming out of Washington by people who think they know better than us.
Right.
There's terrible public policy coming out of school boards by people who think they know better than us.
Right.
And parents, what we found is parents who are organizing, citizen activists who are organizing, are changing their communities for the better, and that's what we encourage people to do. We know that you may have only an hour a month to dedicate to activism, or you may be, you may have a lot more time on your hands, and you may be the person who is fit for running for office in your community. And we give the knowledge and the understanding of how to do those things, so you can go out and build a movement in your community.
As you're saying these things, I've got two things that come to my mind. I've got two or three people that I know that are running for school board in Louisiana. Actually, I think one's in Baton Rouge or two's in Baton Rouge. So I know several people running for school board, but also there's an organization that's in Baton Rouge that I'm always with a whole lot, and that I'm gonna have to introduce you to, Health Freedom Louisiana. While they're always fighting for mandate type things, it sounds to me like they might be an organization that might be a good fit for you all to work with, to offer some training to. And they have a very, very healthy number of people that are extremely active, in that community.
Well, and we've provided training to an organization of federal employees who oppose vaccine mandates, and they are Democrats, they are Republicans, they're working in more progressive entities like the EPA, and they're working in more conservative federal agencies. They're border patrol agents, they're law enforcement. These are men and women who have sworn an oath to protect and defend the Constitution in their federal capacity. I'm grateful for the service of many federal employees, but Joe Biden and this White House has said thanks,
Right.
but no thanks.
Yeah.
It's our way or the highway, and that's really disrespectful. And those individuals are losing their livelihood because of these mandates. And so yeah, that's a group that would benefit from Leadership Institute training. And like I said, we could take a training right there to Baton Rouge, or they could take
Would you
training
be the one
online.
coming down there?
I'm happy to come down. I love it's still crawfish season right now, so happy
It's
to come
just
down.
starting, dude. Crawfish season's
Yeah.
just starting. So, and they keep starting it earlier and earlier. I used to remember that you couldn't get good crawfish till after Easter, but now they're realizing you can, that's something good about global warming.
Don't get me started on
I
that.
won't even start there. I'm with you.
there's-
I don't believe it. Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of coastline down there, and Louisiana is a beautiful state with a rich culture, and the food and the music and the people are wonderful. And I take every opportunity to come down and help people organize. And I've been down to Louisiana a number of times. I love spending time down there, and it'd be great to get some activists in the room. And when I go down there, I say, okay, who knows Morton Blackwell? Who's been trained by Morton Blackwell? And especially,
Where? Yeah.
Go ahead.
Are there still people here that were friends with him?
Oh yeah, every time when I'm down in Baton Rouge, especially the Ascension Republican women and East Baton Rouge and Baton Rouge Republican women, many of them, cut their teeth in some of those early campaigns. Dave Treen and Barry Goldwater, and they remember Morton's activism, and he's a testament. I know that Billy Nungaster talks about starting the Republican Party in Louisiana with his dad, but Morton launched a lot of college Republican chapters in Louisiana in the early 1970s.
I wonder if he knew there's a woman that I just I've got a whole bunch of books from her. Phoebe Coates, I think is her name. She was in the 60s and 70s. She was a conservative activist at Tulane, and she wrote a series of conservative books. And I've got a few of them. As a matter of fact, Daniel with a Pelican, knew about them. So there's a lot of people that aren't aware of it, but it's pretty interesting. That's his time frame. I'd be curious if he, if he knew of her at that time frame.
Well, I'd be happy to connect offline. I'll ask him the next time I see him. He's in the office every day. And when he's not in the office, he's traveling, fighting for conservative principles across the country, talking to our donors, and even providing training to our interns in-house. We've got a great internship. So, William, if you've got young listeners who are thinking about college, or they're between 18 and 25, and they're looking for an opportunity to come to Washington, D.C., the Leadership Institute is one of the best internships. We provide housing. There's a stipend. You get paid, and you get to work in the conservative movement. You get to meet great conservative leaders. And so,
Really?
it's one of the best, especially I know firsthand how expensive it is to live here and to have housing, within walking distance of Leadership Institute. You get to go to it right now. Cherry blossoms are in peak bloom in the tidal basin. It's a great time to come up here and visit. But it's one of those things, the training is so important. There's a constable in Tangipahoa Parish that I've trained a couple of times, and
Really?
he's very involved. Yeah. And so many great people down there who are advancing conservative principles and working in and across the communities. And we're just happy to be both online at Leadership Institute training and in training rooms across the country. You can find a full schedule at leadershipinstitute.org/training. And if you don't see one in your community, you can email me through the website and we can get one set up down there.
So yeah, well, so what'll happen is when I post this in the description, I'll put where people can get a hold of you on.
Great.
On so well, I'm gonna try to connect you because I want to get you down to Louisiana now and take you to get some crawfish.
Hey, I love it. I'd love to come down and spend a few days. Just not in July and August. It's a little too warm down there.
Oh, come on, don't be a wimp. That's easy. That's yeah, I get it, but I'm used to it now that I've been down here for so long. Well, Matthew, is there anything else that you want to bring up that maybe people should need to know about the Leadership Institute or anything
It's just
you're working on?
like I said, our training is everywhere and all the time at your convenience, online, and the nominal expense it costs to organize
But you like 40 to 50 people.
Yeah, 40 people is a good baseline. That makes it worth our while to fly out a couple trainers. I'll tell you, I got back from Salt Lake City yesterday, and I'm headed to Orlando on Thursday, and then Portland, Maine next week. And so we're all over the country. I've got 4 colleagues right now who are in Prague, Czech Republic, who are doing
Wow.
trainings across Europe. Yeah, it's
Wow.
an incredible time to be in Europe right now. But and praying for them and their safe return. But we do trainings all over the country and all over the world for conservatives who want to make a difference in their communities.
Well, let's two questions. And I know I'm probably keeping you longer than you expected, but how many trainers do y'all have, or how many people on staff or trainers do you have? How many teachers? How many coaches?
So right now we have about 100 full-time staff. Now, not all of them train. We have a wonderful development and fundraising team. We have campus organizers who don't do some of the training. We have reporters for campusreform.org, which is our college news website. And then we have a list of dozens and dozens of guest faculty who volunteer their time because they care about what we're doing. And so we have, I put on a program in January here in Arlington where we had 10 guest faculty who came in and dedicated and donated their time to our efforts. And so I could tell you comfortably, we have at least 1,000 guest faculty who have over the last 4 or 5 years presented some kind of program with us. And
Those are volunteers.
They're volunteers, and one. Heather Sellers is a tremendous.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she presents with us across the country, and we love, especially in the South.
Yeah.
She just resonates with audiences and has such a glowing and professional demeanor. And she's also very well versed. And so those are the kinds of individuals who provide training for us, or people who have done it. They've done the organizing. They know what it looks like. And they go out and teach people how to do it.
So somebody who wants to teach, they would come to you and find out a topic that they want to teach on, and then you all provide the course and they teach from that course, or do they actually create the course themselves?
So it depends. If you've got, if somebody's listening today and they're a campaign manager or they've been a candidate for office before, I can plug them into the appropriate training. And if they've got a program, they've got a PowerPoint or a presentation they like to give, we can make that happen. And if not, we can build one. I just built a PowerPoint today that I'm presenting tomorrow online called Jobs on a Campaign. So the nuts and bolts, what jobs are available and how to get a job on a campaign.
Never know. Maybe I might want to teach one of these courses. You never know.
Well, we'd love to have you. And we do a series on conservative podcasting, and we teach people how to have a presence online and do that. So it's well within our wheelhouse to have somebody as qualified as you, William, come and talk about podcasting.
Well, I tell you what, I love not only bringing on conservative-minded people, But, it's oftentimes when I have a Democrat on, I try to find things that you can unite us. And it's often the things that unites us with a Democrat is conservative values. And you bring up I'll bring on a Democrat who has a bill that you say that you never would have known that they would have had, that they had conservative values in mind. So you never know. I might have to think about that a little bit, and see what's involved with it. But the other thing that you brought to my mind that I'm kicking this conversation back up with is you talked about going overseas or around the world. I guess we could say that not only does conservatism know no party line, it doesn't have any boundaries, across party lines, but I guess conservatism doesn't know just America or knows no country.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, but I do have to make a point, you know.
Our principles resonate across the globe, and we've got programming right now in Europe on how to message conservative principles. I myself have been to exotic Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. I've been to Copenhagen, Denmark. We usually, prior to the last couple of years, we've had an international school of fundraising that's been in Rome and in Spain and in London. When Australia opens up, I'm sure we'll have programming there. We were at Japanese CPAC a couple of years ago. The Leadership Institute goes anywhere there are conservatives who want to be organized. And look, if you've got friends in Paris, France, the rich French culture and Spanish culture in Louisiana, I'd love to talk to some ancestors or relatives out in
Right.
France or in Spain. So no, we take the training all over the globe.
So do you think that I'm asking a technical question. Do you think that conservatism promotes freedom, or does freedom promote conservatism? And then as I say that, I'm gonna twist it one more time because I know you're following me by the head shake, which is, does freedom protect conservatism?
I think it's complementary, and I think they work to ratchet one another up. I think that if you believe in individual liberty, in free association, and freedom of speech and religion, then you're going to trend in a conservative direction, and likewise, those conservative inclinations and principles go to reinforce freedom and opportunity and prosperity, and you can't have safe communities without people operating in a free society, advancing the community in a way that secures liberty. These are
Right.
God-given rights, and they don't, as
Exactly.
you mentioned a moment ago, they don't know state boundaries or continental or country boundaries. These freedoms were granted to us and guaranteed by our Creator, and
Mhm.
that's all over. That's all over the globe.
I have a podcast. I don't know if you listen to many podcasts or have time to listen to many podcasts, but I did a podcast a few weeks ago on protecting freedom, liberty in America, and I talk about a lot of things. The whole podcast is around freedom and liberty, and those are the ways to protect our country. And yeah, if you ever have a chance to listen to a podcast, I'd be honored if you listen to that one, because
Well,
I think,
I'm on planes all the time, and traveling to the airport and traveling between training
yeah.
locations, so I've got a lot of podcasts in the queue, and would love to add that one to it. So I'll
Yeah,
take
add that one because I think it would give you a good taste, just how much of a freedom person I am. Matter of fact, I don't know if you know Danny McCormick or not, but I interviewed Danny McCormick today at the Louisiana Capitol, and he's really big on freedom. And I'm bringing it up for two reasons. One, not just on freedom, but also because as we're talking, the bell keeps going off on my head. I'd like to maybe, I mean, not that you don't have some contacts down here already, especially Morton Blackwell being here, but I have a lot of groups that I'm gonna try to introduce you to down here because I really
Well,
think there's a lot of groups that could benefit from you guys.
we'd love to do it, and as you mentioned and hinted at, there are conservative Democrats and conservative Republicans, and the Leadership Institute welcomes all conservatives. We have an open door policy for our trainings, and so if you've got pro-life Democrats, or pro-Second Amendment Democrats, or pro-freedom Democrats in Louisiana who want to come to these trainings, they should feel welcome, and it's an opportunity to fellowship. Not only are you learning the how-to, the nuts and bolts of organizing and being effective in your community, but you're getting to know your neighbors and
Mhm.
the folks who are working alongside you. It's such a great, and now that we're back to doing these in person, and we've been doing in-person programming for more than a year now, It's just great to be in a room with a bunch of people who are there to build you up and there
Right.
to work in the same direction.
It really sounds like an opportunity to be able to build communities and make them stronger and find more things that unite us in such a way. I tell people all the time, don't be afraid of those conservative values when you talk about fellowship or Christianity or conservative values. I mean, people don't realize when they take one of your courses how conservative they actually are, and how conservatism can save our country, and, especially fiscally speaking. So, well,
Absolutely, and once you get, it's so cool to organize, especially, we made a joke about New Orleans earlier, but in Arlington, New Orleans, and more progressive communities, it's a lot of fun to get into a room with 100 conservatives that you didn't know were organizing in your community. And I hear all the time in Arlington, Virginia, I didn't know there were conservatives around here.
yeah,
And
right, exactly.
it's both, it's encouraging and sometimes frustrating, because then it's like a wink and a nod and you're in a
Yeah.
secret club.
You have to
But
have the secret
it's
you have
so
to have
cool
the
to see.
secret handshake, the secret wink to know, oh, yeah, when you're walking down the hallway, in Orleans, in some place in Orleans, to know that, that you're amongst a fellow conservative. Although I don't know, after some things in the news in the past few days, I don't know how much, how much time we can spend in New Orleans, but at least you made it out safe.
Well, that mayor, I mean, that mayor for a long time has been doing some crazy stuff. The shutdown, I really feel for the people of Orleans Parish and New Orleans, of what the mayor did during the shutdown. And it's a service industry and town, and it's an entertainment town, and she killed a lot of jobs for a long
Well,
time, and it's
I
going to
wanna
take a
get
long
you to come
time.
to Jefferson Parish where, where you can not only experience freedom and safety, but be able to experience a community that really bonds together on a lot of the same values that we are. As a matter of fact, tomorrow's show, I'm with Joe Lapinto, who's the sheriff of Jefferson Parish. We're doing a show for him. I'm doing a show with him tomorrow morning, so that'll be an interesting one. So, well, Matthew, I'm going to talk to you off camera for a few minutes, but before we go off camera, I want to see if there's anything else that you want to add to the interview. If there's anything else you want to add, and let people know of anything.
Well, I just want to thank you. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak to you and your audience. And if anybody is interested in any of our programming, start at leadershipinstitute.org. You can take a peek at some of our online training to see if it's for you. If you've got a community you want to organize and bring training out in person, it's easy enough. We're one of the few organizations on the internet that you can go and identify and find every member of our staff and send us an email just through the website. And I'll be on the lookout for those emails and phone calls, and look forward to the next opportunity to come down and help organize conservatives in Louisiana. It's great to be with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. Hang on tight while I finish this up. Everybody else, please share not only the video, but share the podcast when it comes out at William Wallace for America, and look for some things in the future with the Leadership Institute. Please visit their site. And again, spread the word, everybody, because as we talked about, conservatism knows no boundaries. And when we talk about fiscally conservative, we can save our country with it. In the meantime, thank you all so much and have a great day.